you find a person who is half Christian and half African, not knowing what they're doing, because all of these things that they're doing, they do not have a certified reference. Umuntu does not know exactly where is it coming from. So those are the dangers of practicing something that you clearly do not understand. So you don't even understand exactly what you are doing. So if you don't understand what exactly you are doing, you cannot trust, you cannot focus on the process of what you are doing, because one of the things that as you mentioned, colonized Christianity, it taught us that culture yethu as abantu abamnyama is not something to be recognized. It's something that is barbaric. It's something that is not allowed. It's something that is not related to Christianity. No, 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 no. Let's just correct that. Basically, these are two things ezifanayo but practiced differently with different meanings. Like I'm making an example with Zuko. We bow down in the African spirituality culture. Culturally, you when you speak to your elders, whether it's ancestors or living elders, you need to sort of kneel as a way of showing respect. As a way of showing respect. So basically, nowadays, when you are told duty, you are not allowed to do certain things, you find that it actually it goes away from the culture.
Dynamic biblical discussions with special guests exploring tough biblical issues, academic scholarship, ethics, archaeology, textual criticism, Old Testament, New Testament, Bible interpretation, apocalyptic literature, Christian history, ancient Near East cultures. You're tuned in to Conversations with Pastor Cliff on Puluso Ministries.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode on Conversations with Pastor Cliff. Today, I have a wonderful guest that doesn't need any introduction. Her name is Gogo Biyase. She's been here before. And today, we're going to pick up from where we left off the last time we spoke on this conversation with Pastor Cliff. Gogo, welcome to Puluso Ministries on Conversations with Pastor Cliff.
Dumelang Togoza Sanbonani, how are you, Ninjani? Thank you for welcoming me back, Pastor Cliff Mruti.
Thank you. No, I know we're going to have a very interesting conversation. You know, I want us to talk about something very touchy. You know, as many people would know, with the Puluso, we embrace multiple perspectives on spirituality and religious experiences. So today, I just want us to talk about, you know, multiple spirituality. Some people will refer to it as double belonging. We know Sihlale, South Africa, where there's a lot of people with a diversity of spirituality and backgrounds and religious traditions. And I know as Gogo, you come from a background with African spirituality or African traditional religion, as some would call it. So I want us to actually dive into that, because we, as Abanda Bamnyama, we find that a lot of our people claim or identify to be Christians, but at the same time, they want to venture into African spirituality as well. So what are the key takes, particularly in the context of South Africa, for one to embrace being an African and African spirituality, and also embrace Ubaum Krestu, identifying as a Christian?
Okay, thank you. One of the most important things in engazisho to people, first you need to get to know these two backgrounds. African spirituality, it's more of your culture, your ancestral, than Christianity. So the most important thing is you need to have an understanding of when we do something with the culture, how is it aligned to Christianity? For example, uma ngabe siphahla nje, for example, it is not perceived as umthandazo, but usuke sikhuluma with our ancestors, as it's a way of communicator through our African indlela yethu thina abantu abamnyama. So it's very important to first have a knowledge of what you are doing, understand kahle ukuthi i-African spirituality iyini, so that you are able to distinguish between the two aspects. So, for example, with double belonging, here we are, sabantu abamnyama, but there are things that we practice that are aligned now with Christian values in African spirituality. Uthola ukuthi ziyahambisana in such a way that you not try you're not doing something different from the other. Mangabe sishisa impepha, I'll make an example of ukushisa impepha. Ukushisa impepha usuke we are calling upon our forefathers, omkhulu bethu, in order. It is not a prayer. Indlela thina abantu abamnyama enza ngayo esidalwe ngayo culturally. It is not ukuthi siya worship. So kubalulekile uku-understand ukuthi each and every aspect that you do, you have a clear understanding ukuthi this ayihlangani nale. It does not contradict. Hayi ukuthi usuke usuthandaza. No. Masishisa impepho usuke sibiza omkhulu. Sithi komkhulu njengama-guardian angels ethu. Sithi kubona siyakhuluma lento esikhulumayo kubona, but uNkulunkulu usidizayine thina as black people ukuthi sibe nosiko, indlela yosiko lethu. It is not that we are worshiping our ancestors. These two things are not the same. So you find that umuntu omnyama is finding themselves enga-understand. Ebona ngathi we are diverter from one from the other. Cha, we are not diverting. These are two different things, but yet they belong together. So double belonging siyona. As myself nje, as uGogo Biyase, mina I'm ngumKrestu, I'm a Catholic, but at the same time ngumlaphi wendabuko. So if ngiye esontweni, if I go to church, I don't esigodlweni, into engiyenza esigodlweni, which is indumba, where I practice ngisiza abantu, angiyenzi into that is completely different from the other. But uma ngikwi-African spirituality, ngihamba ngosiko labantu abamnyama, but at the same time ngibe nginyusa ubuKrestu bami at the same time, ngoba before siqale i-ritual siyathandaza, ngoba we are calling upon uNkulunkulu to igrace ukuthi isurround ukuthi whatever that we do siyenze ngomoya omhlophe oyingcwele. So you need to understand one from the other in order to understand how do you double belong. You enter this side of African spiritualism, but at the same time you umKrestu. As they go hand in hand. So kubalulekile to understand one from the other, to clearly understand, because you find that a lot of people have questions like, if ngiguqa sengiyathandaza. No, ukuguqa is a sign of respect for us, abantu abamnyama. For the fact that siyaguqa, we're kneeling down, talking to our forefathers. It's a cultural thing that exemplifies, or that means it's a sign of respect, as we were taught that you need to respect your elders. It is not that we are worshiping them.
Kodwa Gogo, ma ngithi ngiyakulalela, you are embracing impela ukuthi many of us indeed siya double belong, whether si aware or whether asikho aware ukuthi we belong. I mean,
Yes.
if umuntu angathi uyabheka, you would find ukuthi a lot of people, for example, mabezothandaza in a Christian setup, bayaguqa, as you mentioned, ukuguqa. But lokho kuguqa, it actually comes from Jewish traditions. Ngoba amaJuda are actually the first ones ukuguqa. But now, amaKrestu in a church setup, they started doing leyo nto yokuguqa, and then Jews said no, asaguqa. So in other words, this ukuguqa was a differentiating characteristic. So namhlanje many people would think ukuguqa is basically a Christian origin, but it actually comes from Judaism. So all of us ngendlela engisho ngayo are basically coming from different strands of traditions, and say our blender to some extent. But if ungabheka abantu abamnyama, we had indlela yethu vele whether we busy indlela yokukhonza or to to connect with our ancestors and God ultimately. So colonization, I would like to believe with khona into eyenzile to actually demonize some of those practices kade sizenza as abantu abamnyama to actually promote Christian ideas at the expense of amasiko wethu. So what is the danger in there, Gogo, for someone or shana down their actual Africanicity at the expense of, maybe we could call it, a colonized Christian concept?
I think what is the danger of that could be is you find a person who is half Christian and half African, not knowing what they're doing, because all of these things that they're doing, they do not have a certified reference. Umuntu does not know exactly where is it coming from. So
Okay.
those are the dangers of practicing something that you clearly do not understand. So you don't even understand exactly what you are doing. So if you don't understand what exactly you are doing, you cannot trust, you cannot focus on the process of what you are doing, because one of the things that as you mentioned, colonized Christianity, it taught us that culture yethu as abantu abamnyama is not something to be recognized. It's something that is barbaric. It's something that is not allowed. It's something that is not related to Christianity. No, 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 no. Let's just correct that. Basically, these are two things ezifanayo but practiced differently with different meanings. Like I'm
Mm-hmm,
making an example with Ugu.
mm-hmm,
We bow down in the African spirituality culture. Culturally, you when you speak to your elders, whether it's ancestors or living elders, you need to sort of kneel as a way of showing respect,
mm-hmm.
as a way of showing respect. So basically, nowadays when you are told duty, you are not allowed to do certain things, you find that it actually goes it goes away from the culture as umuntu omnyama. So you're finding yourself not grounded kuma roots akho. You don't even know what you're doing, you don't even know where you belong. And when you
Mm-hmm.
don't know what you're doing, what you where you belong, you get lost. As you could see that a lot of abantu abamnyama who are Africans, they are actually lost. They don't know exactly what they're doing. They don't even know which is right, which is not right. So we are yet to correct all those things.
Okay. Gogo, khona into ekhona la, many people would tend to judge isintu from a point of view yeBhayibheli. So in other words, the lens in which they judge isintu, it's from a perspective of ubuKrestu, and I find ukuthi there's a danger in that ngoba we tend to make ubuKrestu this super arching uh, religion that has to look at other religions. Why do you think people are not taking Usintu or African traditional religion as a religion on its own without viewing it from any other religious tradition, whether it be Judaism or Islam or Christianity? Why are people doing that? And I find that many people buy a so to know if it is not necessarily from Bible, therefore you are wrong. What challenges does that bring, to actually view Isintu from this perspective? Yeah, Bible, maybe put it that way.
The challenge is that thank you for asking that question. Very important question. So the challenges that we face kakulu is that people have a firstly, you find that there are very small things that are ebhayibhelini ezikhuluma ngomuntu omnyama. So you find that people would want to compare and want to refer, forgetting that i-African spirituality on its own into kamoya, just like i-Christianity into kamoya, but into ebalulekile ngayo is how do you practice it? Uyipractice kanjani njengomuntu omnyama, a black person, wenza njani in order to make sure ukuthi lento yenzayo isuka kuwena as umuntu omnyama, it recognizes you as a person. So now since we don't have references, we find ukuthi shuthi thina njengabantu abamnyama, what we do is actually not correct, is actually not recognized, it's actually not it's not a priority practice isintu ngoba we just want to look at isintu from the lenses of Christianity, forgetting very well ukuthi sikhuluma ngento ethini njengokudalwa kwethu as abantu abamnyama. So you find that umuntu would want to uzovula a certain Bible verse, and from that Bible verse I quote whatever that they need to quote, then they change the context of leyo verse, not confirming ukuthi i-verse on its own is just saying whatever it says, but ayisho ukuthi kufanele senze kanje as umjuda, as Muslim, as umuntu omnyama. It just says that whatever it says, wena njengomuntu omnyama uzoyenza ngendlela le owazi ngakhona as ubuntu bakho, ngoba as uma uyenza njengobuntu bakho, it's when you find power, it's when you find authenticity kuleyo nto yenza ngoba umuntu omnyama. So we cannot say ukuthi it is correct to view isintu from the lenses of from the Christianity lenses, but yet asenze isintu as abantu abamnyama as it is ngoba it's very original, futhi it's kunezinto zakhona othola ukuthi zingaphakathi kwena. Let me just make an example. Omunye mebiza isibongo sakhe as umuntu omnyama, there's this thing evuka ngaphakathi, a spirit that is so proud of who you are ngoba kuvuka ukuthi wena ungubani. Kuvuka lento evukayo njengoba ngisho nje ukuthi as umuntu omnyama kukhona into evuka ngaphakathi of being proud of who you are, of being proud of isibongo that you call, of being proud of your heritage, ukuthi usukaphi, what do you stand.
Okay, Gogo.
So kubalulekile to ukubuka, you can't look at it from this angle, but you look at it from its own originality.
Okay, kukhona into ezibalulekile oyishoyo. What I'm seeing or hearing from impendulo yakho is that khona inkinga esinayo, because African spirituality is not documented. I cannot document to actually refer to it, and abantu actually can downplay leyo nto because asina text, and also use the text like religions as in a text like Judaism, Islam, and Christianity specifically njengoba sikhuluma ngayo manje. So I find ukuthi even in Christianity itself, a tradition that has become a religion. Yes. But that process has actually, for a religion to become, I mean, if tradition to become a religion, it follows a specific process. And the number one thing I'm sure, which is in the text, many of them have those traditions that have become religions have text that they refer to, like the Bible or the Quran or the Torah from a Jewish perspective. And those texts, then you have issues of reading those texts literally, like njengoba usho ukuthi umuntu uzothi ivesi lisho kanje therefore ngimile, without understanding which those traditions were actually religionized and became fixed and become read as creeds and become now objects of worship instead of the drawing from the spirituality that each tradition around the world offers. I mean, whether you go to African spirituality or you go to Buddhism or you go to Hinduism, many of them have those characteristics which you would not necessarily say they were documented, but they were religions that were practiced in connection with nature. I don't know, what's your take on that?
Yes, they were, because again, that's very interesting, because if you mention that, that's where we find the common ground, especially with nature. Tina, as Africans, Tina, as abantu abamnyama, we associate I'll make an example with water. Tina, we go to our water in order to cleanse our souls. We go to our water to cleanse our spirits. So basically, you find that we are so much in connected with nature. I'm making an example with different weather types. Tina, for us as Africans, when it's raining, magnet, basically when we're doing something like a ritual, we say that our ancestors, abantu abaphansi, bajabulile, they recognize what we are doing, and it is perceived to be a successful thing. So we are very much connected with nature, very much connected with nature. We even, when you are experiencing a very difficult period in your life, siyaye siye entabeni, we go up to entabeni to actually pray. Siyefika sithandaze entabeni to get a breakthrough, which is Christianity, but we do it in the African spirituality. Siphinde siphahle. Uma siphahla sikhuluma nobaba omkhulu. We are separating ourselves from abantu, because we want to seek this divine connection uma siyentabeni, to actually sikhulume nobaba omkhulu, to state our cases ukuthi hey, nginenkinga kanje 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 kanje. So I'm actually ngizocela a divine intervention from uNkulunkulu esebenzisa ingelosi zakithi ukuthi ngikwazi ukuthi to get a breakthrough. So we are very much connected when it comes to nature, very much so.
Okay. Khona enye into ebalulekile gogo that you keep on hitting on it, even though you're not explicitly saying it. Maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong. Kukhona ukuthi, people believe ukuthi what Christianity offers to them is that's it, But you find ukuthi ekuhambeni kwabo endleleni, it's like this thing abayilandelayo, this religion, ngathi ibuye ngathi ayibasebenzeli, and you'll find most of church leaders and elders makufika mhlambe isikhathi esibalekile where there's elections for positions emabandleni, they actually come to those who practice African spirituality seeking usizo. I don't know if that's what you've encountered in your practice, but I know it's something that is very pervasive. Mhlambe before naba, have you ever encountered into fanale?
Yes, I have many times, because you find that religious leaders, when they come, basically, omunye is just here to seek a divine intervention. Omunye is here to gather strength from a journey that they are about to embark, or that they're embarking on. Omunye comes to us to uzocela i-guidance, uzocela usizo, i-guidance as to ukuthi mangihamba la ngihamba kahle yini. So basically ubuyela back to their roots, where they belong. Ngoba at some point, people, as much as they practice the Christianity, they say African spirituality is something else. They say this and this and this. Koda, when trying times, when difficult moments come, an African person remembers where their strength comes from. Amandla abo avelaphi. And avela kuma ancestors, avela kumkhulu bakhe. Ngoba usuke efunani, usuke efuna ama origins, usuke efuna power, not necessarily power, but internal power, strength, inner strength to keep going.
Okay. And now, Gogo, you are saying things that are very. I know a lot of people who are watching us today would maybe think we are bashing Champe Christianity, or maybe even promoting the African traditional religion, but it is actually not what we are doing. So basically, conversation here is to basically show already there's a lot of intersections between
Yes,
the
absolutely,
two
absolutely.
religions, you know, and forms of spirituality as one would look at them, to show with it, to some extent, as you mentioned, with it, there comes a point where people, whether they are church leaders, or whatever point they may find themselves in life, where they need to go and find that thing that they are missing, and they would tend to come to you, and there's nothing wrong with that, because it's another way of connecting. Because uma sibheka nebhayibheli nalo ngokwalo, we are reading about a tradition yabanye abantu anyway. Yeah, I mean, it's an Israelite tradition that later became a Jewish tradition, and in modern day Judaism anyway. So we can see a borrowing from and transformation of that tradition into a book form as we have it today. But it is a tradition nonetheless that comes from a Jewish or an Israelite setup. Ngoba one would say umkhulu wami akusiyena Abraham, but I mean, I've never lived in the Middle East, and yet abantu would say, no, I have got nothing to do with amasiko akithi, but anything yami ivele eBhayibhelini. What is problematic about stuff like that?
Okay, thank you for that as well. Hey, that question is very. Hey, that question is very difficult because you find that, Ruti, you find people who have lived that life. Uthola ukuthi there are so many things, painful things that have happened in their lives. Omunye uthola ukuthi use akasebenzi for 25 years. They have brains, they have qualifications, but akuzange kwalunga because ekugcineni umuntu omnyama. So as a person, just like any, even if it's not like any other person, for you to find or for you to be complete, a culture of where you come from plays a role empilweni yakho. Ngoba there are doors evulayo, there are iminyango that are open through that. Ngoba there are certain practices that you need to do in order for you to go to a different stage. So you find that if you do one and you don't do the other, you keep asking yourself, Uti, why am I not moving forward? Why you are not moving forward? It's because you've completely done the other part correctly, but you have completely not done the other part. So you are not whole. Awuphelele. Ngoba umuntu is created ukuthi aphelele, and isintu noma ngizothi culture yomuntu comes there. Fanele uphelele, you must be whole. And for you to be whole, because you are umuntu omnyama njengami, njengogogo Biyase, ngiyathandaza, ngiyalapha. Kodwa for me to ukulapha, I need to seek a divine intelligence from God. At the same time, uma sengithandazile, I will use those herbs engizowatshelwa spiritually because ngiyadonsa. I'll use those herbs in order to help another person because I'm using this and also using that. But I cannot use ama-herbs wodwa ngingazange ngimbize i-creator, because i-creator is going to control this. How am I going to help this person? At the same time, sengithandazile. Now, if I ngingathinti ama-chemicals, nangu umuntu ama-herbs uyagula. How am I going to know I need to touch one A, B, C, and D and mix it in order to help this person. So you can't use the one from the other because we need both. We
Okay.
need the culture as well ukuze sikwazi ukuthi siphelele, to function as a normal human being, to function ngokuphelela kwethu. And ukuphelela kwethu lies in going back to our cultures. Practice the way thina esuke sikhuliswe ngakhona, the way thina esiyiyona njengabantu abamnyama. That's when you strike a balance. But if you're doing one and you're leaving the other, there's a misimbalance there, and you can that turbulence. Mase misimbalance, you find that there's gonna be turbulence, and you keep asking yourself, what am I missing? It's because you're missing the other part. So that's why akakambi kahle. That's why you're experiencing turbulence. Ngoba one is left behind, but one is way forward. It needs to balance.
Gogo, what you are saying to me is quite interesting. Ngoba uzwakala ngathi umuntu o-double bhilokayo, as much as it's
Absolutely.
yes, ngoba ula uyalapha inyanga, and you also identify as umKrestu, and
Yes, absolutely.
I think it's also important when agogo ngoba njengoba sikhuluma, we find ukuthi abantu would say no, mina ngilandela uJesu, without actually recognizing ukuthi uJesu number one was not even umKrestu, because uJesu wayeJuda, so the Christianity that we are practicing or people are practicing namhlanje may not necessarily identify with the Christianity le kade practiced uJesu, ngoba uJesu didn't even practice Christianity, because as I say, he was practicing Judaism young as sakhe. Therefore Christianity asinayo nhlobo engathi sina one view of Christianity, sinama Christianities njengoba sinawo nanamhlanje, and different traditions and different denominations, if you wanna call it that. And
Yes.
and so that shows that we have this spectrum of the intersection of these different contexts, and those are blended with cultures of the day and the cultures of those times and the cultures of places as ngafani. So massively Bible, basically we are confronted with this multiplicity anyway, which we cannot run away from. So even nanamhlanje, Christianity that we practice is a Christianity that is merged with isintu sethu without being aware. I mean, there are churches which I know who practice this explicitly, like Mauya Washembe, they do it. They blend the African traditional religion with the Christianity of the day. And whether we are ZCC, they do the same. There are quite a few churches in Lai Africa that I know they do the same. But what is beneficial when I go Lai South Africa for us to embrace our Africanness, and what are the benefits of embracing our Africanness at the same time without even abandoning what to sing about Christ? What are those benefits that the African traditional religion helps us in terms of our identity and progress as a people?
As people, okay. Thank you for asking that again. The benefits of practicing would be number one. You find you have identity. You know exactly who you are, and when you know exactly who you are, you go through life with knowing ngokwazi ukuthi who am I, what do I stand for, what do I do, mina ngubani. Those are the benefits too. When izinto zasemhlabeni they shake you up, they move you up, you are grounded. And when you are grounded, you find ukuthi even when challenges do come, but the approach yakho to challenges is completely different because you have guidance. You know exactly who you are. Awutatazeli, you don't just shiver, but you hamba with that sense of knowing, okay, if I'm here, this is what I need to do. If I'm here, this is what I need to do. So you find ukuthi abantu bakithi, even umuntu to experience into, to them it looks extremely big, because they are moving, they are shaking. Backbone is not steady. But when they figure to tell you their problem, and you tell them, no, this is a general problem. It's not something big in your corner, because you know it's okay. I just need to move through like this, like this, like this. But because bona, they are half, they are not grounded. So anything that comes, it shakes them to the core. Ngoba they are not grounded. So ama benefits is uhambe emhlabeni ngokwazi. For example, uma kuthiwa umntwana uyagula. Let's say your child is sick. You obviously, as a parent, you'll have stress. Stress at school, and then you take the child to the hospital. In the hospital, but you're not getting a breakthrough. Then you take your child to a traditional healer. They just first consult and they tell you this is the problem, this is the problem, this is the problem. So you find umuntu grounded will then say, oh, okay, no, I know this. I know how to fix this. But umuntu who has no idea is so stressed because they are shaken to the core. And they are shaking ngoba akazi ufanele frustrated. Uma ifika la and you tell them this is what needs to be done for this process to go like this, umntwana aphile. Uthola ukuthi kubona it's such a big thing ngoba the other half, it has not been touched. So therefore, this problem landed yokugula komntwana sevele yamkhipha kwi-direction. So akasazi what to do. Now you first have to calm a parent down. You need to make sure ukuthi ukhulume nomzali in order for umzali to umnikeza ama-instructions to do this. Then the child can actually get help. So those are the things that we get. Kanti when you in balance, our benefits are whatever problems that you encounter, you know exactly which approach do you need to solve that problem. So you find that those that are doing one and then they're not doing the other, when certain situations arise in zabo, as I was making example with the child, umut is just thrown out of a balance because agazi, it's a foreign thing, and they don't have a specific approach. If the approach that they thought was correct is actually not working, umuntu say frustrated even more and causing even more damage.
Okay. You're saying some key things when I go over. Last week I had a guest here on the show, and he mentioned Uguti, a lot of Christianity that people are practicing today is basically the Christianity of the colonizer or colonizers, to put it that way. So Uti, what also contributes to our people is not necessarily that they need to be freed, but they actually participate in their own colonization and they perpetuate that. You'll find that the people who brought certain ideologies have moved away from Lauma ideologies, but the people who fight to keep those ideologies in place are the people who are colonized themselves. So could I say, in line with what my guest Dr. Miguel said last week, which could we say the reason why a lot of our African brothers and sisters, they don't want Isintosabo are actually the ones who are fighting hard to maintain the systems of the colonized or missionary theologies that were brought to us at the expense of our own cultures and traditions?
Yes, absolutely, Pastor. And in adding to the statement, to us as traditional healers, you find that through that colonization, a culture was lost, or cultures, practices, knowledges was lost. So you find that in order for you to help a person, you need to be a person who is very much exposed to deep cultures as abantu abamnyama in order to fit the gap. to help that person. For making an example, so here they are, they're coming to you. They don't even understand their surnames or where they were born. So now here is a problem. I need to go back now to work extremely hard in order to get information as to where do you come from in order to fix this problem. So there's a loss of culture. Usiko lulahlekile. So you find that those that are defending, yes, they are doing it, but there's so much pain and suffering in the midst of this confusion, because there are things that are happening empilweni zabantu that are painful kakhulu. Othola ukuthi abanye, they are groaning in pain silently because they don't know where to go. They don't know how to fix these things. So this is a very sensitive topic, Ruth, that touches thina bantu abamnyama. Another point that I want to emphasize, ayikho into ethi abantu ekhaya abazale ingane, give birth to kids before marriage. Those are one of the consequences that have resulted us from a loss of culture, because from that a new culture, destructive culture, was born, and that culture has created dysfunctional families. Ngoba abantwana bamantombazane, they grew up not knowing, not realizing the importance of ukugcina ubuntombi bakho, uthole umntwana usushadile ukuze umntwana ezobelonga to the right surname. A functional family is created. Those are the problems that we have currently in our society like South Africa. Abantwana don't have identities, or they have identities, only to find when they come to ask traditional healers to consult, there are multiple problems, and those problems, they are problems that umntwana themselves, they did not create, but they come a generation behind. They have to carry those problems. Now impilo yakhe is automatically distracted because of those choices that we did. And when you look at those choices from the parents, it is the loss of culture, because they grew up not understanding those things. They were not emphasized.
I see the intersection there. Some principles from Isintu that teaches Abantu to live in a certain way that is very protective and creates this well-functioning society. We can glean them from whether the Christian Bible or the Hebrew Bible. So I see some commonalities, but there are also differences. I would emphasize, because we're not going to be blind about, in this conversation, everything is compatible. There are some things that are compatible, but the issue that makes Abantu to look for that compatibility is the fact that they are looking at Isintu from a perspective here Christianity, which we are saying people shouldn't do that, because Christianity is a religion on its own, and Isintu is a religion on its own, or a tradition on its own. Therefore, we need to embrace each tradition to be a tradition as it is for its own sake, not necessarily putting one against the other, if you understand.
Yes, and also, yes, absolutely. And when you do that, Pastor, you totally freedom. You are free. You grant this freedom of moving emhlabeni, moving ngendlela yakho, ngendlela odalwe ngayo, and that automatically, when you get that freedom, automatically it affects, it influences our choices that you make.
Okay.
And those churches influences, they influence ama consequences, and ama consequences aqhamukayo, they are positive, and therefore the impilo yomuntu progress. So you look at it from isintu sibuka from isintu.
Mhm.
You do not compare isintu from the Christianity. No, as usual, we are bashing Christianity. No, we are not saying that, but we are saying, can us bantu abamnyama, us black people, us Africans, can we be allowed to be who we are created to be? Because when you're allowed to do that, that's where our power, our strength comes from.
I also
Can we
want.
be allowed? Can I wear my feather? Because ngumuntu omnyama, ngugogo siquzi. This feather represents omkhulu nokhokho bami. So can I be allowed to wear it freely? Because that's who I am. I shouldn't be
Yeah.
ashamed.
No, I hear you, Gogo, and I also want to emphasize, Guti, you did not need to ask any permission because we be who we are.
Yes.
We don't need to ask anyone for permission. Whether is it okay for us to do what we do. You do what you do because it
Can we
it
be
gives
free?
meaning and purpose in life. So no crest, they need not be asking permission. Let me be. But recognize that there is diversities or diversity of traditions and religions out there, and some people prefer to double belong, and some people even triple or four or five belong to multiple traditions, and that's okay because it gives them this whole sense of finding a meaning and purpose in Bilwen, not necessarily would is it right or is it wrong. That's not what we're talking about. I'm sorry, we're talking about embracing who we are without feeling some type of way, and that's what we embrace like Apollo, so that we embrace those multiple perspectives because they actually show us blind spots of some of the things we may think we know, but we actually are blindsided based on the fact that we have been channeled in our vision to see things in one particular way and not see what we may be missing out from other traditions that can actually help us to coexist and live together.
Yes, and also just remember, also cool, is that when you double belong, or when you have embraced who you are, there's peace inside your heart. And when there's peace, every time when you pray, ngaphakathi kunokuthula, there's contentment, which is very important. And when there's contentment, you move through life. Even the people that you associate with, even ama surroundings akho, they have peace.
Mm. No, Coco, I think what you are saying ibaluleke kakhulu ngoba we find ukuthi the teaching of uJesu, for that matter, it's more similar to a teaching your buntu, because mayethi thanda umakhelwane wakho njengoba uyithanda wena, nesintu embraces ukuthi umuntu ngabanye abanye abantu, so if umakhelwane wami akaphilanga, isintu says no, mangimnika inkomo naye abe nemfuyo, ngimnika imbewu ayotshala abe nokwakhe. So that spirit, I find it correlating the spirit sikaJesu ukuthi in actual fact the spirit of the teaching of Jesus is the spirit of Ubuntu, so
Yes,
I
absolutely
don't
correct.
see any contradiction there, and we know even biblically in the Bible time abantu sebenzisa in nature and ways of nature to actually find a harmony with the environment, and also harmony to live with each other. And kubona inkolo was not ukuthi no sengiyakholwa ngenkonzweni, yonke into bebayenza, it was interconnected. And we are saying even today, as much as I don't know if I'm hearing you correctly, but we need to embrace that multiple connectivity esinayo njengabantu, so that we can prosper and be balanced human beings, from what it
Yes,
is what we
absolutely,
see.
yes. Because, and also, just to add, Gubantu, that I want to reiterate, this issue of imbalance, it also causes a lot of what we see today as anger issues from a young generation, because they are caring it. They may do something that is physical, that is a physical behavior, but emotions of that particular behavior comes from the lack of being not content inside, with the lack of not having peace, the lack of, being not being loved. Omunye uthola ukuthi at a very young age was exposed to very difficult traumatic experiences, ngoba kunaleyo nje kunaleyo ma-shaky grounds. So kubalulekile to make sure ukuthi we have this peace, so that we can be able to live with other people, we can be able to approach impilo with peace and harmony, we can grow, sizokwazi to work with one another, we can be able to multibheka emandulo abantu abamnyama were very wealthy, ngoba kwakufuyiwe, kwakutshaliwe, they had amasimu, and uthola ukuthi ama-families ayadlisana, akekho umuntu olala engadlile. But in nowadays, because we have these different denominations, there's a balance between poor and rich and middle class. And whoever is middle class doesn't want to go down to poor. Whoever is poor stays poor, or they fight their way up. When they go up, ubuntu useyabakhohlwa, uyabakhohlwa ukusiza abanye abantu, uyakhohlwa to share. So these things are things that as affected thina abantu abamnyama currently.
No, Gogo, you are saying a lot of powerful and dynamic things, and this conversation I think is pertinent with abantu, bayizwe lenkulumo esikhulumayo, ngoba mina nawe you have a different ways of doing things, and we embrace that inter-religious dialogue, from a perspective your Ubuntu and your Bungoma, and also from a Christian perspective, and that doesn't shake me. I mean, I think you and I have come to a very high level of freedom, I would call that, where we can actually talk, and without fear of one condemning the other or one judging the other, because we know that spirituality is very vast, and it gives us this appreciation. You'll find a purpose and meaning in Pilwe. But now I want to ask
also yes, and also
okay, you go ahead.
Yes, and also look at us as the way we are. Mina ngumlaphi wendabuko, ngisangoma, wena umfundisi, but we worship uNkulunkulu, which is Jesus Christ. Yes, but you find we are two different human beings, but indlela esiworshipa ngayo nendlela esenza ngayo izinto have led us to one path, which is a path of freedom, which is a path of peace. So therefore, that's how we are able to interact, because we have accepted one another, just like how we have said. And also we are able to live, even if we disagree, but we disagree in harmony, in peace. In peace.
No, that's critical.
Ngoba uNkulunkulu says, states, uJehova uNkulunkulu states ukuthi fanele sihlalisane kahle, fanele kube ne-peace la kuwena ngaphakathi, fanele uphile. So uzophila kanjani when you have issues, when you have things that are happening in your life but you cannot be able to solve? Abantwana abasebenzi, and you've been praying for a very long time. Kanti abantwana, they just need usiko thizeni okufanele malenziwe ekhaya, in order ukuthi kuvuleke umnyango, because abantwana abakabiyase bamaZulu, bama-African. So once you do that a tradition, wabenzela usiko odinga ukubenzela lona, here they are, bathola umsebenzi, basebenza kwabantwana, everybody is happy. So we need to understand we are not criticizing the other, but we just want to show, or we just want to share izinto that are happening to us, which can be painful. And anytime we are experiencing a painful, inhliziyo turns.
Okay.
Even if uthandazayo uNkulunkulu turns. So uthola ukuthi Now, is it destructive like Uba no Mona? That's where they get a chance. And then they come in because you are not stable. You have painful things. Moya wako awunawo uthule.
Now, Gogo, tell me now, sihlala emalokishini these days where akunasibaya and we know nesintu itself siya evolve. So because we are evolving beings and things change. I mean, nothing is static, as you would. I mean, I don't know if you would agree, but
Yes.
njengoba sisemalokishini, we find that kukhona some traditional healers uzokutshela mhlawumbe uma uya kuyena, and I think that's why a lot of people are a bit more skeptical about amasiko and visiting izangoma neinyanga, because they think no uzongicharge imali, uzofuna ukuthi ngithenge inkomo and so forth, something expensive mhlambe nayo lowo muntu akekho kuleyo position where to buy or even ukufaka leyo mnikelo mhlambe osukufuna ngaleso sikhathi. So how does one maintain le balance esikhuluma ngayo, living in a modernity njengoba sisemadrobheni emalokishini, where izinto may not necessarily quite be the same as how they were done in Makaya, even reversing iskati like to 50-40 years back? How would you advise that people strike that balance and people also be ethical in their ways of dealing with people who come looking for help?
Okay. Okay. So on that one, I would advise that traditional healers, when they advise abantu who come to Endumbeni sesikolweni, I would advise that first you identify the ritual. Remember the ritual, noma i-connection to abantu abadala or ukwenza usiko aluhlangene ne-infrastructure, but usiko lusuke kwamadlozi ethi enza into ethizeni. Obviously, uma kuthiwa umntwana uyagula, udinga ukwenzelwa isiphandla or imbeleko, it not that necessarily uma uhlala elokishini you don't have a rondavel. It doesn't mean that you cannot be able to perform certain rituals. Obviously, others do it in rooms inside the main house or a dining room. That is okay, because what the ancestors are looking for is the ritual, not the infrastructure. So it's very important that we try to make usig or simplify usig without changing its original diversion. Diversion has nothing to do with infrastructure, but diversion has nothing to do with the infrastructure, but it's the ritual itself. Slaughtering of a goat, ukushisa impepho bizo baba omkhulu, introduce ukuthi we are doing this particular ritual. A way of doing the ritual is correct, even though it's in a different modern infrastructure. So kubalulekile as traditional healers that we explain it to people to try and help them to or encourage them by simplifying it and making it easier and fashionable for abantu to be able to do ama traditions in their homes that they currently have. Because you find that another person, first, they don't have space in the yard to even build that ronda bed. So what do you do now? Does that mean what you have to stop practicing? No. It means what the house as it is, uzoshisa impepho, uslaughterishe goat within the house, one of the rooms, ngisho dining rooms. Ngoba the most important thing, it is the ritual that you are doing. Because you find that even another person, otoluguti, they have the actual correct infrastructure, but because the intention, I must state again, the intention of why they are doing Lolusiko is not correct. Still, Usugo is not acknowledged. So the most important thing is the inner part that is more important. Nanogutusigo, lenziwe ngendlela. Is it correct? Is the procedure correct? We do not divert from the instructions and the way it's practiced. Ngoba That is part of who we are.
Mhm.
So it's
Okay.
very important when you advise abantu, you try and meet that gap for them to understand, so that when they are practicing or when you are explaining it, they are encouraged to see what they can actually practice where they live. Bangakwazi ukuyenza lento. It is not, it's not too complicated, but it's doable.
Okay.
But that's what Tina as traditional healers, just remember, Ruth, Tina as traditional healers, we are mediators between your ancestors and you. So when you come to me as Gogo Biyase, you are here to, you have a problem. You don't know how to do, what is the problem? First, I need to identify the problem, then advise you on how to solve the problem. Yes, I cannot change infrastructure, but I'm here to solve the problem. And the
Mhm.
problem is you need to do a certain ritual. So here I am, I must advise you. Uguti, uyenza kanje, uzothenga imbuzi of this color, of this gender. When you ushisi people, this is how you speak, this is what you do, this is how you do it. After that, keep in nyongo, we tell them some. After that, if there's like a Zulu bangle, we call it ispandla, that you need to put, where do you put it? So there, as a traditional healer, that is my job, to explain that to you, simplify it, so that when you do it as a mediator, you do it correctly, you do it successfully. So that those are the most important things.
Okay. Gogo, yeah, I've certainly enjoyed le nkulumo yethu namhlanje. Before I let you go, I know there's people who probably may want to ask questions or maybe even get hold of you, to maybe even get assistance. Mhlampe umuntu kade ethandaza, they're like, hey, I want maybe another perspective. How do they actually get hold of you? Kukhona i-presence, mhlampe unayo, for people to connect with you.
Okay, I do have a page on Facebook. It's called Muntu, which is a Facebook page where I try to tackle some of the issues from my own experience as a traditional healer. Engizama to try and enlighten abantu about certain things that could be problems empilweni zabo. So I normally write topics, but of course, I always encourage people to pop up and post certain topics that they would like clarity and guidance upon. Also, Nagu Instagram, yes, I do have a page, which is where we try to post izinto, trying to help abantu, trying to simplify what we're talking about, my rituals. But you find that a lot of people, they are keen to do things, but they just don't know where to start. So we try and help them to be able to gain certain knowledge, so that even when you are at the corner, you are faced with, or you are about to do a very difficult decision that needs to be done, which does hambi kahle. But if you have these online presences that you are able to read and get some sort of guidance, and then you are able to, we can be able to help you ukuthi sikwazi ukukusiza ukuthi uthi embark on a journey ezokwazi ukuthi ikusize eqaqela izinto zakho, ezokwazi to make meanings of maybe past traumatic experiences or current traumatic experiences in order for you to understand when certain things were happening, that's kamuka from this. For example, just make an example, something very close to my heart that I've witnessed and ebuhlungu. You find ukuthi uthatha abantwana, especially lava the 2000s, abantwana badla ama-drugs, and there's this big noise about this and this and this, about those issues. Those issues, uthatha umntwana is left alone, no guidance, no intervention, no support from home, because ekhaya it's looked as umntwana ogangile. Yes, ngoba izinto zenza zi-tangible, but the background of them taking those drugs goes way back to umsamo, ungaqondi komsamo. So ungaqondi komsamo have actually led them to these things ezasemhlabeni, ama-frustrations, omunye it's being in the wrong place at the wrong time, agcine sefunda lezinto. Ngiyacela abantu benkosi, ngiyacela ukuthi thina abantu abamnyama asike sizibuke izinto. Let's try and support our kids. Understand what is going on. Don't just look at the behavior that the child is doing. Then you just conclude ukuthi lo mntwana ukuthi nokuthi. Try and find that the background. So in you finding the background of why is this mntwana taking these drugs, go and consult as well. Try and be open to all possibilities in order to help this child, because once the child starts doing these things, they are labeled and they live under that certain label. And umasephila kanjalo akube kusalula ukuthi ashintshe ngoba they don't see a need for them to change ngoba they have been labeled. They've been labeled at home, they've been labeled emphakathini. So uthola umntwana uyaphela. Abazali, they don't understand where is the core of this thing. This is very serious. Izinto lezo that thina as traditional healers eziqhamuka esigodlweni, and we need to advise abazali on the approach of these things ukuze abantwana bezokwazi ukuthi create a generation that is healthy, that is peaceful, and functional. So please ngiyacela kakhulu ukuthi we must have a look at those things. Sibuka from an open mind perspective.
Gogo, siyabonga ngempela about your contribution and your insights. I was sharing nathi nabalaleli. I believe within our bayizwele, and they have gleaned some ways of wisdom that can help us to live with one another and interact, have a healthy interfaith dialogues as yenza abantu to actually progress empilweni. Gogo, thank you very much for your time.
Also, ngiyabonga kakhulu nje. Sengivala nje ngiyacela, I thank you so much, Pastor. Ngiyabonga kakhulu mkhulu for touching these topics ngoba we are healing we are healing amanguni ukuthi aphakame amandla that were lost through colonization, abuye lawa amandla amanguni aphakame ngoba entweni zonke uma ubuka imizi yabantu, different situations that have led to poverty, you'll pinpoint as a lot of spiritual issues that have contributed to what you presently see as poverty, ungasebenzi kwabantu, ungayi kwabantu phambili. So if we correct those issues, we are able to correct all the other social issues that we tangibly see. Kodwa uthola ukuthi at the back they are spiritually aligned with izinto eziqhamuka ekhaya ezingenzange zenzeke kahle. But because we don't see those things, sibuka this behavior sibukayo, asibuyele emuva. So ngiyacela kuthina abantu abamnyama, kuthina manguni, as Africans, let us go back to our roots. Let us go back and look at the things. Let us correct the things that will help us to move forward. Thank you very much.
I hope you have enjoyed this conversation. No, Gogo, until next time, I think we need a part 3. So next time,
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Zawe.
Puluso Ministries is a non-profit educational enterprise founded in 2019. The ministry is informed by academic scholarship. At Puluso, we embrace multiple perspectives in our engagement with Scripture. We seek to provide non-Christians and Christians from all backgrounds and denominations with resources that provide an honest intellectual engagement with the Bible. We embrace multiple perspectives in fostering a more open, moderate society into the 21st century and beyond.